Welcome to another Armchair Safari with Natalie.
Hello.
And
Robin.
That's me.
You.
That is me. So we'll kick off in Antananarivo.
In Madagascar.
In Madagascar. Capital of Madagascar.
So Madagascar is a large island off the east coast of Africa. Not many people go there.
It used to be a French colony, hence the Renault cars.
Before it was a French colony, it was a monarchy.
And here's part of the monarchy.
It's the old palace.
The old palace.
And it's been a republic for, I think, since sometime in the 50s.
So you can see it's sprawling, it's over mountainous hills.
Very polluted air.
Terribly polluted, very
Crowded,
ramshackle, crowded.
Terrible
Oh
traffic.
my god, the traffic.
But then, oh my god, the lemurs.
What sort of lemur is this?
This is a cockerel safaka, I
It's
believe.
pretty relaxing. Look at the size of its thumb. It's amazing.
So these lemurs in this park are rehabilitated. They used to be kept as pets or were rescued from the wild or something like that. So they're a bit habituated to humans, and so it's an ideal place to quite easily get quite close. Oh, and here's a dancing safaka.
Yeah.
So the safakas, when they're in a hurry, they run along on their hind legs. And here's one sitting up in a tree. They were quite curious about us, not as curious as we were about them, but they were quite cute and interactive.
So they're still quite wild, but they said if you touch them, they'll bite you.
So we didn't.
Possibly so that tourists don't touch them anyway. But it was a very good practice place for the cameras as well.
They were so good at posing for photographs.
And what's this little fella here? Is this another safaka?
I think
Cockerels.
it's another safaka.
Yeah, another cockerel safaka.
So there's over 100 different species of lemurs, of course, and some of them are dangerously in peril because of lack of habitat. About 80% of their habitat has been lost on the island of Madagascar in the last 20 years.
Oh, look at this one, that's a bamboo.
This is a bamboo lemur.
Little guts.
So they're quite amazing animals. They range in size from about 5 centimetres long, the mouse lemur, which weighs about 30 grams, up to the biggest, the Indri, which is up to 75 centimetres long and weighs 9 kilos.
It's a big boy.
This one is one of the bigger lemurs. It's called a black and white ruffed, and it's very cuddly and a bit dozy.
This was having its siesta, wasn't it, really?
Very fluffy. So lemurs live in the forest, and they're vegetarian, and they eat leaves and fruit. Unfortunately, sometimes people eat them, and the forests have been, I know, it's very sad, forests have been
Denuded.
badly damaged because the population of Madagascar is terribly poor and their homes don't have any electricity. They rely on charcoal for cooking, and of course charcoal comes from timber, and there's been indiscriminate logging in many of the beautiful dense forests, and so it's very sad. Lemurs are very sociable animals. They live in family groups, matriarchal, like the world should be.
What's that mean?
It means the girls are in charge.
Right, so
like
it
here.
should be. A bit like here. Hang on,
No.
I'll just check.
We're a democracy. So their role in the forest is quite interesting. They act as pollinators, apparently. So they run around through the trees and climb everywhere, and they gather the pollen on their fur and then distribute it to other plants. This one is a ring-tailed lemur. This
With
is
another cockerels.
safaka.
I'm not sure what that
Well,
was.
I think that's a different kind of safaka.
Yeah.
And that's the fluff ball one.
It always looks very surprised.
Except when it's half asleep.
Yeah. But that's just the way they look, yeah. And so they're curious creatures.
They're not monkeys.
Aren't they?
No,
Okay.
no, they're pro-simians. They're primates. They've gone down a different branch of the evolutionary tree to monkeys and apes and humans.
Right. So we left Antananarivo, if I can pronounce it, on route number 7 towards Antsirabe. Here we are in our Land Cruiser with Nick, the driver.
Cruising over the land.
Cruising over the land with Nick, or Kevin as we called him, who was a very talented young man who, as it turned out later, was quite a mechanic, negotiator with the police force the corrupt police force on several occasions. And
So
General Mr. Fix-It, wasn't it?
He was wonderful. So driving through the countryside, we can see that the terraces. There's a lot of subsistence farming here. Most of the population lives in the rural areas.
The Central Highlands,
In
yeah.
the Central Highlands, it's quite fertile. That rice forms a very large part of the diet. So these are rice terraces to a large extent, and lots of beautiful vegetables. Really quite good food.
Yeah, so quite a good... There are some tin
Here's
trucks
a
that
little
you
stall
can... Yep.
by the side of the road.
They made them out of beaten tin for kids.
So they're very ingenious people and tourists, I think.
So what I did was we photographed a lot of the little houses and stuff that you see as you drive through, and they're very bright. They're really like vibrant reds and yellows and greens for their paintwork, including this washing up powder called Boom, which I thought was pretty suitable. Hopefully it didn't blow up your washing. So just some views out of the windows of the car as we race through towns.
This is a little village, which is quite picturesque, but the houses are very primitive, made of mud brick with thatched roof, no electricity, no running water.
No conveniences.
Quite a tough existence
No,
and
nothing really,
large
yeah.
families.
So we get to Antsirabe, which is an old town, and we had this little rickshaw drive around the town for I don't know, half an hour or so. It has a famous railway station, which of course now...
But unfortunately no trains.
No trains, it's still connected to the rail line, but there's nothing running on the railway. So like a lot of things in Madagascar, they were there probably 50 years ago, but they've fallen into disrepair.
So here's the station.
And people try and make money out of
Oh, now here's a nice bird.
renting their little trucks for kids. Now here's a red fodie.
That's right. You know the red fodie is not always red.
No, it just shows off at breeding time, doesn't
That's
it?
right. Only the males at breeding time become red, and the rest of the time they and the girls and the younger birds are just a dull sort of browny
so
olive.
They're pretty amazing little birds.
This is some sort of bee eater.
That was a purple bee eater. And then here are the two
There's
girls
some keen photographers. There's Stephanie.
spotting something in the bushes. What was it? I don't know. And this was Nick spotted a chameleon walking across the road, and there it is. And so we screeched to a halt, and he picked it up and popped it in a bush, and we got some photographs of it.
Posed for us.
Extraordinary.
Looking at us with its beady eye. Now here's the vegetable market. I wish my vegetables were as lush
They're
as
prolific.
those.
Absolutely
Fantastic.
prolific.
Some more rice terraces.
Accommodation not so good.
I think that's an abandoned shop.
I think so, yeah, abandoned shop.
And here's some of the subsistence farming.
Gee, and so you can see what sort of a tough life they have in Madagascar as a farming community. There's this little kid who's probably 8.
Should be in school, but
Should be in school.
isn't.
And this is a harrow. Is it a harrow? They call it a harrow for breaking up the clods of
I'm
earth.
not sure.
And 2 buffalo or zebu just trundling
In
along.
place of tractors.
And that is hard work. And then there's 3 apprentice farmers in the background just watching. So more typical houses.
Very picturesque,
yeah.
but I think very hard to live in.
We actually screeched to a halt in one of these little villages and went and had a look inside one of these houses. Nick knew somebody somehow, and here it is.
Girl.
And it was full of kids, and the man who owned it said, well, they're actually not my kids.
The whole
my
family
kids.
of about 9 all sleeping
Yeah.
on bed.
So his kids were elsewhere, and the rest of the
Maybe they were
village
doing
turned
their
up.
farming.
So
very
it's basically
friendly.
one room, isn't it?
Yeah, well, and the cooking gets done inside. But one lady has gold teeth. A lot of other people don't have any teeth. Dentistry is not widely distributed, I don't think.
So his 2 gold teeth, is that better than no teeth? It's hard to know. So, we stopped the vehicle and were sort of probably the most exciting thing that's happened to them in the last few days. Not that we're terribly interesting, but I don't think many white people pull up, and so the kids are fascinated with pictures on the screens of the cameras, of course. And the scenery in the central part really was quite beautiful, very, very heavily cropped, farmed, and then this is a little bit further south, looking across the mountains to another part of the country. So
beautiful skies.
Some great skies when we were there around May, I think it was, a couple of years ago. And so now we're off to Ranomafana National Park, so a little bit further south and just off the main road here. And as you can see, it's
jungly.
It's very jungly, yeah. Yeah, so we all had our
Very hot and humid. As
Tarzan outfits on. It was very humid.
Very sweaty.
And plenty of opportunity if you left the path for tripping over almost anything, because it was full of creepers and lianas and all those sort of things.
And lemurs.
Which the lemurs
So what sort of
love.
lemur do you think this is?
I think it's a brown lemur.
Common brown.
Common brown, yeah. Very cute, and we're using flash in the jungle because it's so dark. And most of the lemurs, of course, are up in the branches, and of course they're silhouetted. So you kind of need to use a speed light, which is a bit awkward. It's just more stuff to carry.
Exactly.
He looks a bit of a fatty.
Oh, he's just fluffed up.
Yeah, but he's a different kind. I couldn't work out which one he is. He's just straight out of the hairdressing salon.
And there's a waterfall.
And there was just a beautiful waterfall. A lot of water, of course, because of its...
The source of a lot of the humidity.
It is, I think that's where we worked it out eventually. So there's a lot of it happening there. So there's a lovely steel bridge, which you'll see in a minute, which goes over this river before you sort of schlep out into the park. And it consists of sort of horizontal walking tracks, and then they'll say, "Oh, brown lemurs," and you have to run up a...
Yeah, they have spotters, don't they?
Run up a hill.
Didn't they have walkie-talkies or something?
Oh, maybe, yeah.
And then we had to race.
Run up a hill at 45 degrees, sliding around.
Oh, what's this? This is a striated tortoise.
Yeah.
Very big. And that is a magpie robin.
Magpie robin in the forest.
Sweet
Beautiful
little
little bird, yeah.
And this was on the way out back to our hotel. This was,
3 pigs on the roof.
They were alive too.
Yeah, they were.
Things.
So just some of the flowers.
So we've seen fauna, now we're seeing flora.
Flora, this is the flora. So a little bit of a mix of flora from different parts. And this wonderful chameleon who took half an hour to walk 6 inches up that branch.
He's in no hurry.
And butterflies, lots of lizards, sunning themselves, different kinds of lizards,
Environment.
unidentified bug. And there is a name for it, we know that one, don't we?
This is a giraffe-necked weevil.
Wow, look at that. That's just bizarre.
It's quite a big, it was about 5 centimetres long,
Yeah.
wasn't it? This is a leaf-tailed gecko, which was so well camouflaged. We couldn't see it until the guide actually picked it up off the
Showed
twig.
it to us, yeah.
And it moved.
It's probably the weirdest looking creature I've ever seen.
Sort of fog. Here's another, I worked out,
It's the chameleon,
what
yeah.
sort was it?
I don't know. Well, it's sort of green, isn't it? Here's another
Well,
one.
they change colour, I believe.
And so we were out at night, and it's either mostly photographed in torchlight or flashlight.
That's a beautiful one.
And being nocturnal animals, they're quite extraordinary.
Very pretty.
Yeah, quite amazing.
So this was another day on the road. Men protecting the zebu from zebu rustlers.
Rustling, yeah. So zebu are very big cattle, and unfortunately, the Chinese have built a port in Madagascar, and they're buying up a lot of the livestock there to export to China. So unfortunately, these people, I suppose they make a living out of it, but it's basically denuding the natural food supplies from the island of Madagascar for the Belt and Road system that the Chinese are pushing. But there were probably several hundred of them on the road here,
Well, they
I
are
think.
investing money in the country, which nobody else is doing.
Which is,
They
yeah,
totally need
there
it.
they are, yeah.
They're in very dire straits.
And we actually ate zebu on a couple of occasions,
Yeah,
didn't we? And
it's very nice.
Very nice, yeah. It's just beef, it's just beef.
We stopped to photograph a viewpoint, and all of a sudden, from nowhere, there were about half a dozen kids and
You
their
didn't
grandma.
get out of the car, you're sitting in
I
the
was
car.
getting my ISO correct.
Okay.
Didn't want to get in trouble.
And so Nick, the driver, distributes biscuits or snacks to all the kids, including a plastic bag. So the plastic bag that it came in, he gets that. Because they have nothing, absolutely nothing.
I think the average person earns about $1 a day, the equivalent.
So again, off the main road, the N7 down to Madagascar's only tea plantation. And this was just one of the things you do. I spotted it in the Lonely Planet, so we want to go there. And little bit did we know the quality of the road. So it started off
It was memorable.
well-intentioned, didn't it? Here are some ladies selling charcoal. Again, the forests are getting cut down for charcoal. And this is the worst road. I didn't actually video it because I couldn't hold the camera or the car or myself steady to do it. And here are some machines in the tea plantation. They were just out of season. They were servicing the machines. But I was amused to see that some of them were made in Europe, and here's one made in Birmingham, where I was born. So it was a small world, really.
Sort it and
Shake it
ferment it and jiggle it
whatever,
about a
yeah.
bit.
And here's the poor guy who was pushed in front, said, "You're the one who's going to show us around." And here are the different teas. We tried some, it was very nice.
We needed a cup of tea by that time.
We did, yeah. There we go. And so now we carry on southwest to the Saranora Massif, which is a geological wonder.
In the middle of nowhere.
In the middle of nowhere, supposedly. And it was a wonder that we actually got there.
It was a wonder.
So this is actually footage.
Doubts.
Yeah, this is what I took on the way out. When we arrived, it was late in the evening, wasn't it? Pitch black, pouring with rain. And poor old Nick was sort of, the windscreen wiper was going 10 to the dozen, so he could barely see where we were heading. And I think we got lost a couple of times, but we eventually woke up in the morning and this was the view. Absolutely stunning. So I read somewhere that a lot of rock climbers come here from Europe to practice rock climbing.
Rocks.
We basically walked up this track up to underneath that very high dome. There's a wood up there, a forest with lemurs.
And
we went for a picnic at a waterhole, I remember, and there was a Frenchman lying with no clothes on.
How did you know he was French?
Well, I don't. It's very hard to tell.
Talk to him?
No, but French are probably the most common tourists there, so that's where I got that piece of information. And this is the sort of terrain you have to sort of flog through in the forest to get to where the lemurs are.
This was sort of a drier kind of rainforest, wasn't it? It wasn't quite so humid as the other one where we saw that.
Yeah, so a little bit drier, so a lot of leaf litter.
Still pretty steep and not exactly an easy stroll.
No.
Yeah.
And the guide kept saying, "Over here, we'll go up here, we'll go over there." Thought, right, okay.
So we found a group of lemurs. What's the collective noun for lemurs?
Collective.
Conspiracy.
A conspiracy.
Conspiracy.
There you go.
And I've learned a little bit more about how they got their name. Now, the famous naturalist Carl Linnaeus had a hand in their naming, and apparently it means the evil spirits of the dead. Interestingly, the natives of Madagascar had traditionally believed that the lemurs housed the spirits of their ancestors. So there's some parallel there, but they don't look that sinister, really, do they?
Oh, he looks very inquisitive.
Oh, he's
There's a
very
good old
sweet.
Good old sniff at the GoPro there.
Yes.
So after that exciting spot, we moved on again to Isalo National Park. More dirt roads, more fantastic scenery. And as we're going sort of south, it just gets drier, doesn't it? Yeah, drier and slightly more barren and considerably poorer. And lots of these little villages, which as soon as you stop the vehicle, a million kids appear out of nowhere. I don't know what they're doing.
Well, they're not going to school.
They're not going to school, yeah. So we're driving up to what's called the Bishop's Hat, this huge lump of rock, which is quite spectacular. You can see it's more grassland, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think.
So
I was going to say Serengeti, but that's the wrong country.
Well, Africa.
Sort of close.
It's not but it's part of Africa, really. Geologically, I suppose.
So a couple of landscapes you can see. Here are some houses, very dry, very dusty. A couple of farmers.
I think agriculture is much more of a struggle here. Zebu, maybe that's
Zebu.
And then Nick showed us some more of his unexpected skills, and we met some other tourists. These ones were Dutch, weren't they?
Yeah. So they kindly stopped to ask if we were okay. Nick was on the case doing something. Actually tell us what it was. It was something to do with the brake drum, I think, yeah. So we got it fixed.
Thank God, much to our relief.
Yeah, and we ended up in Isalo National Park, which is, as you can see, it's very rocky.
Pretty rugged. Yes. Lots of rocks.
Lots of rocks.
Big rocks.
And here we are at the top of a rock.
Looking down on some more rocks.
Looking down on some more rocks, yeah. Yeah, so this is quite famous. Again, it's fairly spectacular, I think. I can't believe we were close to the edge.
I can't either.
Yeah.
Ooh, was there any wildlife?
Well, we mentioned it and they said, there are scorpions. So I think we said, well, where? And here are the boys looking for a rock.
And sure enough, needed a guide.
Yeah, a guide needed a guide. But sure enough, we found a scorpion.
Voila.
Or several, fairly evil-looking beasts.
So these are the most dangerous animals. The plants were just incredible. I wish we knew more about what they were, but they're Some plants we've found growing in Madagascar we have in our own garden, and others are just so bizarre we've never seen them.
Very bizarre. And so we've seen some pretty bizarre ones in the botanic gardens here, haven't we? And the really weird ones usually come from Madagascar because of its isolation.
Yes.
So down at the bottom of the valley, of course, was a tiny little stream, which was very nice, very lush. Lots of palms and palmy frondy things, yeah. Out of the sun, really, because it was quite warm, I think, in that area.
Nice to hear the water trickling.
There was.
It's so clear and clean.
Just makes you want to go to the toilet, doesn't it? Just drinking water.
Okay.
Here we go.
We're going to go for a swim.
Well, we sort of do, and then I change it to the picnic scene.
And then we have a picnic.
So I'll say this for the whole trip, we had fantastic food. And even on a picnic like this, they oversupplied food. We could have had 10 people quite nicely fed on what they produced. Fantastic.
And here's another lemur. Now, do you know what the scientific name of the ring-tailed lemur
It's
is?
lemur
Catapult. And I think that means because that is because their cry is like a cat.
Oh.
I might be wrong, but it's a good story. I'm going to stick to it.
So these fellas are obviously a little bit used to humans because as soon as the picnic stuff was set out,
Picnics.
there was rustling in the bushes and they appeared. But they kept their distance. They didn't come too close.
But I think if we'd walked away, they would have been pouncing on our
Would have been
lunch.
interested, yep. And in fact, this spot, there were probably more tourists than we'd seen in the entire trip. Probably 20 of them or 30 of them.
Yeah.
Don't know where they all came from. Probably France.
Now this is a striking plant. It's a pachypodium, which means elephant's foot.
Very
And this
ancient.
is an aloe. I think this is another type of pachypodium. Amazing.
Extraordinary shaped.
Yeah.
Very prehistoric, isn't it, really?
Beautiful insects.
A lot of insects and some fabulous flowers. These are all Natalie's flower photos.
I don't know that that's native, but anyway, they were pretty.
Yep. And we don't have, do we have the names of any of these?
That's an orchid.
That's an orchid. That's an orchid.
That might be some sort of aloe.
Yeah, it's a spiky,
That's a succulent.
droopy thing.
That's a lily.
That's a lily, yep.
Don't know.
So they were spectacular in their shapes and forms. The blue on this was mad.
That's a
Absolutely mad.
hibiscus.
Hibiscus is very common.
That looks like a crucifix orchid.
Yeah.
Oh, this was the posh hotel where I had a massage.
Oh. So this hotel was built into the rocks, as you can see, out of the local stone. So it was brilliant.
It's pretty striking.
Very roomy rooms, very
Comfortable
big rooms. And have no complaints about the accommodation in this country at all. All the food. Fresh croissants every day.
Roads, on the other hand,
The roads were
a completely different matter.
incredibly bumpy.
Now this was this gem mining town, a bit of a frontier town, and it got a bit of a bad reputation,
It was
particularly
called,
after
what was it
dark.
called? Ilalaka.
Ilalaka. And it's said that this town is sitting on the biggest sapphire deposit in the world, but I think most of the big ones have already been dug up and taken away, and there's just little ones left, and desperate people trying to find them.
You can see, notice the 4G telecom shop in the front here.
Everyone's got a mobile phone.
Anybody with a packing case can set up business selling mobile phone.
Who needs the NBN?
Well,
So, just back to the sapphires. Did you know that the sapphires that come from Madagascar are largely pink sapphires?
no, I didn't. So quite unique.
Yeah.
And a lot of the dealers
The dealers are from
Sri Lankan.
Sri Lankan or Thai. Risky juice. What's risky juice?
Well, Risky Juice, this is another town where they brew their own alcoholic beverage, which, as the
Some
name
sort of rum,
suggests,
isn't it?
yeah, and so it's turbocharge your trip to brain damage if you drink too
Tourists
much.
are not advised.
Definitely
Now,
not advised.
what are these things?
Well, these were tombs
These
on
were
the side of the
family
roads.
tombs. The Madagascans have a very interesting funeral practice which involves exhumation on a regular basis. And in July to September every year they have this ceremony of turning the bones. They open up these family tombs and take out the bones of all their dead relatives and wash them and rewrap them in a silk wrapping, and then take them, give them sort of a party, and,
Wow.
and it's quite. They're very.
But just in this southern part,
They
though,
want to
isn't it?
keep.
Yeah.
No, it's in the Central Highlands.
Central Highlands,
They want to
okay.
keep the people that have passed away alive in their memories, and
Gosh,
yeah, it's-
keep the
it's quite
bones sparkling
striking.
green. Ooh.
Yeah.
So we finally got to the coast, and we drove up the coast, I don't know, 20, 30 kilometres to Ifaty, And this is Raniala Nature Reserve, which is an accredited nature reserve. They have some fantastic baobabs. Absolutely, some of them are absolute monsters.
Stunning. There's 8 species of baobab in the world, and 7 of them are native to Madagascar, and one of them is in northern Australia as well. So we have 1, but they have 7. They're amazing trees with huge, big, bulbous trunks where they store water.
Massive.
The biggest one in that photo earlier on, I think it was said to be about 1,200 years old at least.
That was with a sort of stepladder carved into its bark. Yeah.
Massive.
Because they eat the flowers or the
Fruit.
fruit? The fruit.
Fruit. Yeah.
So luckily they're preserved in this reserve here because, with land clearance, I think they just chop them down. So we saw a few in our travels, but then when we got here, there were lots.
Yeah.
It's probably more in Australia, really, because we tend to have a bit more room and fewer people. So Raniala was pretty good. And there was a small family.
There was a small conspiracy of lemurs
there was a small conspiracy, yeah. And some very strange buildings down on the coast. That was a hotel designed to look like a ship. And, fairly primitive.
Kind of ship.
Outrigger boats, fishermen.
Beautiful white sand.
Nice sand, and a lot of people on the beach who want to sell you stuff. And I think we did. We bought some...
I bought a sarong.
Sarong, did you? So wrong.
So wrong.
Oh, so wrong.
And then...
Well, that's all from us on our
an
Madagascan adventure.
Bye for now.
Until next time. Bye.